There we go. Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I apologize for the delay. Yeah, it's been a weird day. Just before we went on to go to our Facebook Live, all of a sudden my sound audio went out, which is something I've heard people say before in the past, but never happened to me because I think I got this whole game down and apparently I don't. Anyway, welcome to and hopefully this will go smooth for the rest of the show. I'm sorry we're starting so late tonight, but we'll run a little bit later, I guess. Anyway, my name is John Peasy, and welcome to Cool Crap We Love. It is August 14th. No, it's 8:14 p.m. And today is October 14th, and it's fall, and it's going to be 75 degrees tomorrow in New Jersey. And we have a great show today on what? Games that we grew up with. You know, Cool Crap We Love has brought so many different things. And by the way, I have to just mention this, as a performer, as a comedian, they always tell you never pee before you go on stage, because when you pee before you go on stage, you could actually have in your dungarees, you could have like a wet spot. So they always like, you never pee before you go on stage because you just avoid ever actually happening. And this is what happened tonight. I was playing with something and I touched something, and you should just never play with anything before you go on stage. You should never play before you go on live stream as well. Anyway, welcome to Cool Crap. Tonight is a great show all about games that we grew up at. And I was a big video game guy. Loved it. Still do. And we're going to do some video games from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we have a great guest that actually drew Qbert back in the day. So let's bring on my partner in crime that you all know well, the great Walt Lipolito Poop. I think that's his name.
Oh, my God. Oh, boy. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about this debacle that happened tonight. Now, Johnny, I said before that John was going to explain what happened. He goes, nah, not me. He explained what happened. All right, so that's the one thing. Number two, if anybody noticed, Johnny said that it was August 14th. It's not. It's October 14th. So let's check that off. And number three, John, I will never do this show with you again if you call them dungarees one more time. You called your pants dungarees.
Well, I wear dungarees because I'm a 70s guy. I don't wear jeans.
If your daughter heard you say that, she would punch you in the face.
Yeah, you're right. Is it jeans the proper name? Am I really showing my age?
Jeans, not dungarees.
Jordache? Are they Jordache? Are they Brooklyn jeans? What are they?
Dude, please don't tell me you call these normally dungarees.
You know, I actually don't. I don't know where I'm actually a little disappointed from the timing of this whole thing tonight. This is kind of strange what's happened.
Dungarees, right?
It's never happened before, and we started several minutes late because of it. But hey, anything gets, being late is okay for, I guess, once in a while, as long as it's not your girlfriend.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, she's not late.
Yeah. If you hear that,
right.
Then you got a bigger issue, right? When you're a kid and you're like, hey, I think I'm a little late.
Been there.
What?
Been there.
Yeah. Hey, Walt, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I am doing good. Reminiscing about video games. When I did a little research last night, I was like, wow, oh, man, I love that game. Oh, I love that game. And I spent a lot of quarters on these games. Let me tell you something.
Me too. And I looked at a couple of things. Brian just wrote, "You suck." He's talking to you, Walt. I agree with you.
He's talking to you about your dungarees. Brian, who are you talking about?
He's talking about you. Hello, Eddie Gambito. So, you gave me some stuff that you played apparently. And I actually looked up a few of my own, and I was actually very pleasantly surprised that I'm telling you, pleasantly surprised that a lot of things that you were playing, I weren't playing. Now, we're almost the same age, pretty much. Just about.
You weren't playing the games that I was playing, so I can't imagine the games you were playing.
Well, I was a geek. I was geeky. I kind of love computers. So
this is good. This is good. I'm going to learn tonight how much of a geek you are.
Yeah, you really want to. You must know how geeky I was as a kid.
Yes. I'm going to take an educated guess.
You want to know how much I didn't get involved with young girls when I was a kid?
Yes. I want to know what line Dawn, your wife, fell for to be married to you.
I said, I have a 286 computer. And she was like, really?
Wow. Commodore, right? Commodore.
Yeah, Commodore 64. Yeah. I always was fascinated by computers and how it all worked. And apparently I don't know enough about it in this technology date as we speak, apparently, because I couldn't get my sound working.
That's a good point.
But anyway, speaking of which, one of the biggest games that we all know back in the day was this. It's one of the first,
Atari.
right?
Yeah,
Did you have one?
that was a great game. That was one of probably the first one that came out, right?
To me, it was the first one that came out. I remember I was in a band with my friends at the time, and I was playing the keyboards, and we had a band. We used to play Bachman Turner overdrive music and stuff like that.
Taking care of business.
Taking care. And Hoochie Coo, what was the name of that song? Hoochie Coo.
No, that's Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo by Rick Derringer.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. All that kind of stuff.
Dude,
and
you
I
are
remember
a complete nerd.
in between drinking Miller Nibs beer,
7-ounce Miller Nips in a
and
clear
maybe
bottle.
smoking pot that we thought was pot back in the day.
Yeah.
You'd plug this in and play this, and it was Pong.
Pong. Yeah, well, I gave you Pong. Pong was
That's all.
that was the original game. You could plug that in on your TV, and all it was like tennis. It was one paddle on this side, and you had a little turn knob, and you went up and down, and you tried to stop the ball from there. It is.
There it is. And look,
there it is.
Look at those beautiful graphics.
That's huge. That was great. Everything was
cool,
was a square.
It was cool. It was really, really cool. At that time, I think it was like 1976 or 7 or something. It was really cool.
If you had that, you were rich.
Yeah. Well, I got it after everyone else had gotten it.
Me too.
Yeah, but it was cool. It was very, very cool. And having that in your home that you could plug into your television set was a big thing back then. It was
absolutely. And all it was a little hole, like a little cell phone, and it had a knob on it, and you would turn your thing back and forth. Yeah. Well, you know what's funny about that? That Bob Rumba, one of the things I gave him was Dragon's Lair. I did give you that.
You know what I'm laughing at though? I'm laughing at you turning your knob back and forth. I think that's the funny thing. I feel like he said knob. Loved Atari, had the jacket. You see that? Yeah, everybody. Thank you for the dungarees.
Had the jacket.
Had the jacket.
What jacket?
He must. Well, that's what he said.
He had an Atari jacket.
Well, remember the logo? If you look at that logo, I have that logo.
John, he just took over Nerd of the Year from you, whoever that was.
That's the Atari logo.
But he did it. He had a jacket.
Yeah, I believe it.
Who would wear a jacket?
So listen, I can't wait to bring on Jeff because I'm a big fan of his work. But more importantly, I want to buzz through some of these things. There's so many things. I have enough to do another whole show on this stuff.
Yes, we have a lot of them. But yes, Atari, that wasn't a game. See, I was going for the games that you had to pay quarters for at the bowling alley and at the candy store and at the arcade.
You're saying strictly arcade, strictly stand-up arcade games.
That's what I was going for. You obviously were going for the ones that you didn't want to go outside and actually meet women.
Well, first of all, at the arcade was a place to hang out and meet girls when you were a kid. I mean,
of course you are.
What do the kids do now? They go on Zoom. They watch.
No, they don't even go on Zoom. They go on Grand Theft Auto and they beat up an old lady and rob a Bugatti together.
And who hasn't? So as I was thinking about these games and the stuff that we grew up with, I started thinking about, well, what were the games of the 70s before the 80s and the 90s when they became more and more, they grew so rapidly, graphically and stuff.
Yes.
And I know when Jeff created his Qbert, that was the beginning, I think, of, I mean, it was popular already, but it was the beginning of some really big movements there. Yeah. So I started looking at some of the earlier games, which of course was the Atari. And back in the late 70s, I first of all, before we had those games to play, what would we play? We'd play this.
Air hockey.
Yeah. Which, by the way, is still a great game.
It's still a great game. It gets really quick and it gets really fast. And then one of those, that puck can fly off and hit you in the bridge of the nose and actually kill you.
Yeah, and I also remember some of those air holes, sometimes you get clogged up and you had an advantage on one side of the board.
Yes.
And you always used to put your hand over there, like trying to feel where the air was.
Yeah, if the air wasn't going over, if it was sticky, you didn't have the advantage.
It was simplicity, though. Simplicity.
Yeah.
And another thing that was simplicity as a kid that I would play, and it wasn't at the arcade, was one of my favorite games. Boom.
Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah, and what the kids say in the commercial.
You knock my block off. That little kid.
You knock my block off. Okay.
Where's that kid now?
So, yeah, probably, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So here's another thing. One of the early games that came out, I believe, from Nintendo, maybe was boom.
Was that wrestling?
No, it was boxing.
Where's the gloves?
We see the guy.
Oh, I see it. The green glove.
He's got a green glove, and
I know.
it was a pretty good game. It was a pretty good game at the time. Graphically, it was
never had it. Never had it.
I played it all the time. Awesome.
Nope.
How about Mug Mash?
Never had it.
It was an arcade game.
Mug Mash, Mugmash.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
Okay, I could be wrong. If I am wrong, somebody, I'm sure.
I mean, it's a game, obviously.
Yeah, everybody's going. Oh, there's Bob going. Everyone loves pinball. Of course, everybody loves pinball.
That could be a whole show, pinball.
You're right. Yeah. See, arcades were first, and then was the home games. By the way, Bob is good friends with Jeff Lee. As a matter of fact, Jeff Lee made a comic book about Bob.
All right. Make a video game
on his
about
website, which we're going to show later. Dave goes, I worked in a pizza place 14 to 17, and had an arcade, so I constantly played before.
And we had arcades up the kazoo in Jersey City. We had billiard time where they had pool tables and video games, and they had a couch there where you could put quarters into a TV, and you and your friends could watch TV for quarters.
Yeah, it was huge. Matter of fact, I got to tell you a quick quarter story, but let's move on a couple quick of these. So here we go. So we had the Pong, and then now this is late. This is much later on. Now this is late 90s, early 2000s. These games became really small on little disc chips that you played in handheld things. I remember Animal Crossings. I remember playing this game and Luigi's Mansion, and Zelda was huge. It first started on one platform, and then later on came into other platforms.
Zelda was with the keys, right? You had to go get keys.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the first one. But the Luigi, that was just a takeoff on Mario and Luigi. He wasn't even a thought in anybody's. I mean, I went back to Donkey Kong where Mario wasn't even a plumber.
But this was called Nintendo Switch. And you were able to switch between the larger and the smaller things that came out later. Another thing, too.
I was too old for those. I was too old at that time.
Well, I had a young daughter, and she played these games. And I remember, encouraging her to play games because she wasn't, into, that kind of stuff, And now she's into her iPhone. Now when I talk to her, I have to talk to her thumbs. Look at these. Look at this. Here's the contenders.
That's all the game, but that was all the games you had at home.
No, but this
Nintendo,
is
Sega. Yeah, I get it, man.
Platforms. I mean, it went from Atari. Look at the graphics on the Atari over there, and then it grew and grew. And I had Sega, and then I had Sega Genesis and Game Boy. I mean, it really grew from one extreme. It just kept going. The platforms kept going up.
I didn't have any of those, man.
No,
I had Nintendo. That was it. Duck Hunt, and I had the running pad.
Oh yeah, you see, well, we
did the Olympics.
I was into this. I like game. Remember this game? This is one of the first games in the arcades that was great.
I gave you one of those, Space Invaders. I spent plenty of quarters on Space Invaders, and all that was a line, a line of creatures that didn't even look like creatures, and they went up, and you had to just shoot them before they all came down on top of you.
Yeah,
It was.
Yeah, simple, very simplistic game, and
shooting
hugely popular. Here's a couple of more stand-up games from arcades.
Yeah, I can't even make them out. Defender, I gave you Defender. That was defend some little cities. What was the other one over there? Joust. I gave you. Joust was one of my favorites.
And Stargate. Which is your favorite?
The Joust was one of my favorites, where you were on top of an ostrich, and you had to land on other ostriches, and you knocked the eggs out of them, and then you had to go pick up the eggs for points.
Yeah, it was and I liked when you pressed the button, you pressed it, and it kind of gave you the feeling of almost lift, right?
It gave you so you had to press the red button that made the wings fly, that made you go higher to land on the other.
But it didn't just drop down. If you didn't press it enough, it would just fall down quickly. And as you press, it's almost like you're pumping air into the thing.
But there was an endless pit that you would fall into. That's how you died.
Yeah,
but you had to land. They had some. I think I gave you a picture of it where it had the platforms that the eggs would land on, or you could land on without going off the screen.
I'd have to look at the rest of these. I got a lot of pictures here. I put in way too many, honestly.
You did.
I will tell you, out of all those games that are there, my favorite game is sitting there. Do you know which one it was?
I'm going to guess Smash. Defender.
Defender was my favorite game because you had this little ship, and the ship would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you could go left and right and off the screen. And then you were shooting these like alien spaceships that were coming by, and they were picking up the human beings off the planet and bringing them up, and they would blow them up, and you had to shoot the ship and break it, and then scoop up the human and bring them back down to the Earth. It was kind of really cool. I wasted, well, I don't know how much money, but my quarters. Yeah, and I got really, really good at that game. I was going to all the different levels and stuff. I remember as a kid, like sitting there. Really
what was the game that they had lines coming down, and you had to take a rolly ball and stop it?
Funny. What? It's funny you mentioned that, Walt, because
there was like 10 buildings you had to protect from green lines coming down, and you had to shoot a bullet.
It's funny you mentioned that because once again, while smoking reefer, getting high with a ketchup thing was one of those you used to put a joint in a ketchup and go like this. Did you? I remember smoking pot and playing this game for hours and eating cheese and crackers. There it is.
Yeah, that's it. Missile Command. I couldn't think of what it was.
And by the way, again, a very simplistic game, but great. Just
they
really
started dropping it quicker though as you blew up those green lines coming down. They came down quicker, and you couldn't get them all, and you couldn't save all the cities, so you had to pick and choose who you had to save. Today's world, you would be called a racist for not saving a certain city or a certain building or anything like that.
Cancel culture. Hey, let me ask you, what was the music that went along to that game? Do you remember the music that went along? Because I kind of remember this. I think
like
it went
growl, wasn't it?
No, I think it was like bump, 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 bump. And then as the things got fast, it was bump, 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 bump.
Maybe.
You just say it's like
I don't remember the name. I don't remember the sounds. You are a goofball.
I tell you what, while you're talking, I will go look it up.
Well, give me something to talk about.
I'll bring you something up. Okay.
Bring me up something, and I'll tell you what I think about it.
I'll go look it up. Speaking of which, you know what this music is, right?
Mario. But that's the new Mario stuff.
Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, when Super Mario Brothers, when that came out, man, I used to play that all the time. My son played it all the time, where you go down those tunnels and you have to jump around and you have to get money signs and
who hasn't?
What?
Who hasn't? You know, I'm gonna go look up that Missile Command because now you got me thinking.
Give me one of the ones that I brought up and I'll talk about.
I don't know what you brought up, but I'm gonna bring up. I'll give you something that's fun here. Here, this is for you.
I can't talk that long about that's not it. That's a toy. What is that? Qbert.
I want to save that. Let's not
save that.
Let's
save that for the Qbert guy.
Let's do a classic arcade game that was everyone loved.
All right, there you go. Donkey Kong.
Okay.
Now go ahead. Now you can go. So it was a bunch of steel girders, and you had to go as Mario. But I don't think my son told me this morning that Mario, who was a plumber in the newer games, was a carpenter back then, and he used to have a hammer, and he would just go. You have to go up the girder, and then up the girder again, and then down the girder and up the girder. And you have to jump over barrels and stuff, and you'd have to get up to the top because Donkey Kong was throwing these barrels down at you, and you'd have to get up to the top and save Princess Peach. Princess Peach.
Right. You remember the name, Princess Peach.
Princess Peach. I mean, it was cool because you had to jump over the barrels, but after a while, it got a little boring because the barrels used to come down really fast, and I couldn't jump over them enough.
Tell me if this is reminiscent at all now. If this jogs that old brain inside that dusty skull of yours. You ready?
One of the seminal games of the early 1980s. Its direct successors are but among
I don't see if I
an
hear
ability that came to me through missile.
That's it. That's the Missile Command.
Replying to the president himself. At the time,
but you don't hear the
that Joseph Osgood Elementary had once reclaimed by right.
Yeah, you got to save those little green cities down the bottom.
Yeah, but you're not hearing. There was a sound that I wanted to get that I didn't get. But okay.
You're off today, man. You are off.
I was so off. I have pee on my dungarees. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Just on one dungaree leg.
Hey, let's take a look in here and see what's going on here on the sides here. Mission Control was on Mac. See, I didn't play with Mac back in.
Yeah, Leland. Yeah, I did.
By the way, Leland,
I don't know what that one was.
Leland is a computer guru as well. He's
Yeah.
a
Just
genius.
by the name Leland, you have to be.
Yes, you should be. I knew it wasn't right. Missile Command, your brother said as well. Rick
That was what we just
Cassell.
talked about.
Best 80s game was Sinistar. Oh,
Sinistar.
I gotta go look that up.
I don't know what that was. Sinister.
He gave
Sinistar.
us a link. He gave us a link that I could pull up. I will pull that up. Let's see.
Who else?
I always thought he was a great plumber. Yeah, this. Let me pull up a couple more of these photos. I got a lot to go on here.
Go ahead.
There's so many. By the way, I wanted to bring this up too, but I guess we could. I don't want to wait much longer. Where are we? What time are we? We're moving along very quickly.
Yes.
So there's Qbert.
That's Joust.
That's the Joust. That was a
That's
beautiful
Joust.
game. You
So
gave
you
me
could
that.
land on those little platforms, but that was lava on the side. The red was the lava. So anything that fell in there, you would just disintegrate.
I
So
like
you had
the
to
way you
stay
say
on those
lava.
platforms.
It was lava. I like lava.
It was lava.
Uh,
Yes. Now this was a great game, Galaga. You shoot this, and they'd all spin around and keep coming down. So you had to pulled you up, but you had to shoot all of these things.
This was like a takeoff or built on the shoulders of the classic Atari missile,
Space Invaders,
Pong, and then Space Invaders, and then this. Yeah,
but this was a great game
and more stuff,
because you heard everybody go bah, 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 on that green button to shoot.
Yeah, a great game. I remember playing it. I bumped quarters. It says on there. It says 1981 to 2007. That's how long this thing was out.
Yeah, and you could still get it in like those classic. Now you could buy these stupid video games. It's a little joystick that you plug into your TV on channel whatever.
With all the games.
But
better than that. I was telling my friend Ted, the guru Ted, who was on here before, he's gone now. But I mentioned this to Jeff Lee too. Jeff lives in Chicago, and right in Chicago is this huge arcade. It has like 1,500 games from 1970 till now.
Dig it. There's a place right down by you, bro.
No, but I mean, this is like the world's largest of games.
All right. Well, we're not going there, but you can.
I would go there. I say we get up early on one Monday morning. You take a 9 o'clock flight. 10:30, you're in Chicago. Take an Uber over there, and you spend all day at the arcade and have a great time. And you go home at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's awesome. How much is that going to cost? About $700 to play video games?
No, I mean, Chicago flights now like $150 round trip.
You want to do it? I'll do it.
I'll do it.
Say I did it.
I will do it.
How about we do this? How about we go to Asbury Park, to Silver Bowl, right on the boardwalk, and they have all the games?
I want the largest one in the world.
You can't get us started at 8 o'clock, but that buzzer was right on time.
Now, speaking of which, I don't want to get geeked out here. Let me bring a few more things up. All right. There is
Pac-Man.
Super Pac-Man, regular Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man, and this grew into one of the most wonderful franchises ever.
Miss Pac-Man was awesome. I was a big Miss Pac-Man fan, but there were other games. Like I was trying to tell you, there was a game called Stunt Cycle. Stunt Cycle. All it was an Evel Knievel type of guy on a motorcycle. He would drive across the top slow, and you'd have handlebars. You drive across the top slow, then he'd come down the bottom one and come across like this slow, and then you get down on the third one here, and you'd have to pick up speed and jump over 2 buses. And then you'd have to do it again for 3 buses until eventually you had like 17 buses that you had to drive over. But if you went too fast, you flipped over. And I'm telling you, people used to see, John. Why you gotta say that, Brian?
Hey,
that is awesome.
Frogger. I don't know.
Oh, I forgot about Frogger.
Frogger was like the greatest. That was the greatest.
That was a great game. That was you have to go over. You were Frog, and you had to get on logs that were going across. That's it.
Kathy works with me, and she said, "Yeah, right, early flight." She knows that when she books a flight for me, I always tell her like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, as late as possible.
No, I forgot. Does Kathy like me, or Kathy doesn't like me?
I don't know if Kathy likes you or not. Kathy,
do you like me, or you don't like me? And I'm talking about as a person, not sexually.
If it's sexual, you know what that's going to be.
If it's sexually, personal message me on Facebook.
Daniel Miller likes you sexually.
Daniel Miller has never got nothing to say.
No, and he's just sitting he's shooting blanks right now. By the way, here's something that's really look at how like how old this is. Like,
You know what this was?
Dig
This was
Dug?
one of my favorite games, Mr. Do.
Oh, it's not Dig Dug.
No, I think it was Mr. Do.
You did this on the computer with the up and down arrows.
Yeah, that's Mr. Do. You would get with a joystick, and you'd have to go around getting all of those cherries, whatever they were, but you had to, once you made that path that those creatures could get in, now they start chasing you. So you almost had to cut them off.
I think that was built on the shoulders of Dig Dug, and then
Dig Dug was almost the same thing, but that was Mr. Do.
Okay, now, and by the way, one of the games in the 70s, this is another one. Fire Truck was one of the very first games back in the early 70s, I believe.
I never played it, and it looks like that's a two-person game because there's a back.
It could be, or you could do it. It's just a screen.
You're
just moving this fire truck along, and you got to move the ladder up and save somebody.
It's got little rascals written all over it.
I know. How about this? I played this a zillion. I played this. I love this game.
Oh, Skee Ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, you went a totally different way than I did on this whole thing.
I just threw it in there. I was just looking up stuff, and now here another game. Now if you look to the left,
television.
Well, you see, if you look, you'll see here. This is the progression of these games in some sense. There you're going from Atari to NES to Super Nintendo, from Nintendo to Sega. There's a variety of like antiquated to a little bit modern in that picture. I thought that was just pretty interesting.
Look at that joystick, the yellow joystick there with the black handle on it.
Yeah.
You know, you used to, when you had the first Atari, you would always play with those. You're playing against somebody, but one joystick always sucked worse than the other joystick.
You're right.
Yeah, and whoever had the worst joystick always lost.
Here's something else, Walt. How about everyone play this?
Oh, what was that? Pole position?
This was a racing car game. I just remember this is like
I think it was called Pole Position.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Pole position, that would just take out and burn out, and the road would just come faster and faster and faster, and you have to go in and out of cars.
Look at how poor those graphics are. Look at that blocky stuff. Look at it.
Everything was blocks.
Okay, here is another one that everyone played.
Centipede, I loved it.
Me too, which is basically just like the other ones. Basically, this one's
Centipede is. But see, the thing with this centipede, it would come across, and when you shot it in the middle, it would break into two centipedes.
Right.
And then they made a better one, which was Millipede, if you remember that one.
Yeah, that's right. Millipede came out later.
Millipede was faster than that, and then they used to have these spiders that would come down and try to get you.
Right. That's right.
But that was a great game.
Let me buzz through a couple more of these. I mean, because I just want to bring. There's another. Now later on, I guess the 80s. Later on in the 80s comes out Rampage.
Do not remember it.
Oh, come on.
Do not remember it. Rampage.
Bally Midway had a lot of these very popular in these games. Matter of fact, Jeff will probably talk to us about this too. And how about this? I played this at home, I think on my Sega system.
I remember it, but I never played it.
Oh, this was great. It was you and this other guy, and you're running through the jungles, and you had these platoons. And then when you pick up these things, you could shoot them out faster and faster. And it was a really good game. You're like killing people and running up through the jungle and squirting and going up and down.
John, just admit you like running through a jungle, squirting with another guy. Just admit it.
I'll give you kudos on that one. I got to give you kudos on that one. How about let's see. Another classic thing here. Now, this is all right. Here's why I got. Before I bring on Jeff, I want to get geeked out. There's just couple of things here. First, after all of this, Nintendo and all that, Sega was like leading at one point with the Sega.
Never played it.
Sega Genesis. I still have this Sega Genesis system right here, upstairs in my house, collecting dust, and then later on it went to this Dreamcast, I believe. But
I no idea. No idea. I have the original Nintendo with the Duck Hunt on it, Duck Hunt gun, and the power pad you could run on and do Olympic games.
I have that also, I think, too, somewhere in my attic.
I think I still have it in the styrofoam box it came in.
Wow, I have it too. I tell you the truth, but you know, I remember like in the 80s when I never got into that Commodore computer. I learned how to do it a little bit and make a line move across the screen or whatever. I remember thinking it was a lot of work. And then if you remember, I had well, if you remember, if you were geeky or really into computers, which I was, I had a 286 computer, and this was big for a while.
Huge
Remember that?
Commodore. Yeah.
What was that
We
game?
had that. We had the floppy disk, and we got it at Crazy Eddie's.
Crazy Eddie, that's right. But before Wolfenstein 3D, which was the German version of the game, which was on Underground, I used to have to go download it on some bulletin boards. There was a one before this was called Doom.
I remember Doom.
And then this one became politically incorrect for some reason, of course. And then they kind of hit it, and you had to go download it in pieces on bulletin boards.
If you remember, though, I'm almost positive the first one that came out like that was what Bob Rumba said was Dragon's Lair. With Dirk Diggler or whatever his name was.
You're
Dirk
right.
would have to go in and find all of these keys and slay dragons and that was the first one. And it was you had to play quarters. So you would be in the middle of slaying some kind of dragon, and you have to drop more quarters in the machine just to keep going.
It's a great business model, isn't it?
Worked.
Imagine that if people putting quarters into you so that you to keep the performing. You'd be like 25 cents. I'm done.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you real quick. I used to work at an arcade, a little arcade, and what happened was what they would do is put some red nail polish on the quarters, and the red nail polish on the quarters. When the guy came to empty the machines, he gave the guy back the red quarters because those are the ones that supposedly people lost. So if somebody says, "Hey, I lost my quarter," the guy would give you a nail polished quarter, put it in, and then the guy, the company that came and emptied the machines, knew to give the red quarters back to the guy who owned the place.
It's amazing you say this because a friend of mine, his father owned a candy store in Brooklyn when I was a kid, and that's exactly what they did. And he would say, whenever you put them in the machine, just put this red marker on. We had a red like Sharpie, just put them red and put it in. And he would get all that money back, and we would play unlimited, all that we want. That's how he really got good in the games. But I just want to bring up also something that went from 286 computer, and then I got a 386 computer, and there was better games that you could do in 386. And then like a year later came out the 486 computer.
Yeah,
and the
486.
It still had floppies, and they had the 1/4-inch floppies, diskettes or whatever. And then the games started getting really good. And what were they? Myst. I remember playing this. This was fantastic at the time. It was like a really unbelievable game. Look at that. The #1 best PC selling game of all time.
Really?
Did you play Myst?
No.
There's Duck Hunt.
That I played Duck Hunt.
Yeah. And then after Myst, there was another one I had was a Secret Service guy one. There was these games for racing cars that became really higher end now. And things started getting better and better and better as far as the quality of the games. They really got really good compared to when you looked at things like that.
That's Centipede. That was Centipede. Yeah, but that's still a good game.
Absolutely.
They had that right over at Silver Bowl, right by you.
Here's another one I played, Altered Beast. Great game.
I'm starting to see a pattern here, John.
What was that?
I'm starting to see a pattern that you liked all these Dungeons and Dragons, kooky, mysterious, elf games. What is that?
I have no idea.
Dude, that was hard.
How about this? Did you play this?
What was that? Fighting? Two guys fighting?
No, it was always a fight. It was like, and then these games grew into the other one where they would like pull out the guy's heart and you go, finish him. And he would rip out his heart and it would be pulsing in your hand. Oh, it was great. I forget the name of it. It was great.
I don't understand all these games with the fighting.
You didn't play games. You didn't play games. You really want a game. You weren't a game guy.
I used to play games that showed my skill, not that I was beating somebody. I mean, how did you stop yourself from rioting 2 weeks ago?
All right. Well, look, what's Rudy's? Brian said.
Oh, Rudy's. Rudy's was the place that we used to where the quarters it was in the back of the pizza parlor. He had a big game room back there, Rudy's.
Oh, and Dragon Slayer was the first Laserdisc arcade game. I didn't know that.
All right. Listen, we better bring in Jeff.
I can't wait to bring in Jeff. He's waiting way too long. Maybe I gotta go wake him up. Jeff,
Qbert was one of my favorite games.
Qbert was great, and you know something? There's got to be a lot of history. Hey, I look so blurry.
You are very blurry.
I'll fix it. There's everything. Again, everything's a disaster tonight. Did you notice that?
Oh, there you go. You look much better there.
Yeah, maybe. The only thing that's making me look better is a facelift and Botox. And anyway, let's bring on our friend here. So I look now. I don't even have his intro, but we don't need it. This guy has
We
been
don't need
around.
it.
I actually have an intro for him here. Let's see what it is.
We don't need it. The guy, he was the partner in drawing. He was the drawer. The other guy was the computer part of it. They made the game Qbert, and Qbert was a great game.
Jeff Lee. Yeah, was born in 1952 in Elkhart, Indiana, and is the original video artist at D. Gottlieb and Company. He's best known for creating the character Qbert, the popular arcade game from 1982. He also produced the video graphics for Caveman, a video pinball hybrid, Mad Planets, Krull, which I played, Qbert's Cubes, The Three Stooges, Quizmodo, MACH, Mach 3, and
I remember Mach 3. It was a driving game, Mach 3.
He also developed graphics for a number of video games that were never manufactured, such as Protector. I think this is pronounced TYLZ, and Whiz Wars. For independent arcade producers, he created artwork for Lotto Fun and Double Cheese. During his period, he also produced game graphics for Sega Genesis System, Home Alone, Premier Technology Exterminators, and Maze Wars, as far as a Macromine. Plus, he does all this stuff in print. I mean, he's a great artist, great artist, and a great mind. And I'm fascinated to hear what he and how this all happened. So here he is, the wonderful Jeffrey Lee.
Jeff Lee.
Jeffrey.
Hello.
Hey, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Lee.
What a great intro.
What a great bio.
Guy? He sounds wonderful.
Now, Jeff's in Chicago, right? Jeff's in Chicago.
I'm in Chicagoland, yes.
And you drew. Now, Qbert was one of my favorite games. It was killing me not to be able to talk about it because we wanted to save it for you when you came on.
Yeah. Well, the time is now. Yeah, so delayed gratification
right now.
Yeah.
So the first question is going to be, because Qbert was such a huge hit. The company that you worked for was Gottlieb at the time,
right? Well, it went by various names over the years, but it was originally D. Gottlieb and Company, and they were the one of the original pinball companies. In fact, they introduced the flipper to pinball back in the 1930s, and the pinball industry was headquartered pretty much in Chicago. Williams, Midway, Gottlieb, who else? Stern, which still exists.
I remember them all.
Yeah, so they were all in Chicago area, and naturally they, being in the coin-op business, when video games came along, they all jumped into that. And so I was hired by Gottlieb, which was Gottlieb Amusement Games. By that time, here's my souvenir hat.
Oh, cool.
And a division was started up. Our boss was a guy named Howie Rubin, another Jersey boy like yourself. He had worked for Atari, and he worked for a distributor out in New Jersey, so he knew the coin-op business very well. And him and another guy named Ron Waxman, who was the engineering brains, hired a bunch of staff, programmers and artists like myself, and software, hardware guys, audio guys, and jumped into the business head first.
That's awesome.
You know, I introduced the flipper to a young girl when I was 17, and I got my ass kicked.
I'm not believing it. I am not believing it.
That's
more importantly, though, did they see this coming, Jeff? Like, this was a big thing. I mean, did they see the trend happening, or did they just get in that before it really blew out? Or,
well, they got in it. Space Invaders and some of the other games had been around for a few years, so maybe they were kind of late getting into it. And it was a very short tenure in that sense. I started working there in 81. By 84, the industry had kind of crashed, at least, the arcade end of it. And so, yeah, it was very, very brief. It was lightning in a bottle. However, the games have never left, regardless of what we did. And a lot of the people stayed in the industry. They went on to other places. Some of them are still in the business. Some of the colleagues I worked with are still doing things like David Thiel, who did the audio for most of our games. And he did, the great sounds on Qbert. He's still doing sounds for pinball machines. There's another guy named Dennis Nordman who was a game designer. He's still making pinball games. And some of the pinball crew is still at it. They're working for Stern or Jersey Jack, which was an outfit started out in New Jersey, moved here to, Chicago area a few years ago. So there's been a lot of continuity. Now, you mentioned like Defender earlier. That was, the brainchild of Eugene Jarvis, like a legendary guy who is still in the business, started his own company, Raw Thrills, and he's still making games. So anyway, there's like I say, a lot of continuity there.
The video games that came out and you played in the arcades and stuff like that, I got to tell you, they were so popular. And my brother, who watches the show every week, will vouch for this. Every Christmas, we would find a $10 or $20 of roll of quarters in our stockings, the Christmas stockings, just so we can go play these video games, man.
Oh, that was very thoughtful of Santa.
Not only that, he was Jewish.
Yeah, we used to get one quarter on the first day. But no, that we used to get rolls of quarters. I mean, that was presents to us that we would get rolls of quarters to go play these games.
Nice.
And well, there's a coin shortage now. We could use them again.
Yeah.
But now, Jeff, when you started, you were asked to draw a character for Qbert, and specifically, I assume this is the first character that you're drawing for a video game, or did you have to draw the backgrounds as well, or just this character? And then when you did get asked to draw, did you actually? I mean, you can't contemplate. You couldn't foresee where this was going to be going. Like this would be such a.
Well, in this instance, the game had kind of evolved. There was, a number of people involved in it, and it was like one thing led to another. It really started with, the optical illusion of the cubes. That one of the engineers had thrown up, and that was something that I had fooled around with for many years. Since my college days, I was fascinated by MC Escher and those sort of optical illusions. So it was a natural thing to generate those kind of graphics, and from there we thought, well, maybe there could be some game here. And Warren Davis, the programmer and co-designer of the game, saw these cubes. He envisioned the pyramid, and he took it as a programming exercise. I had written up a proposal for the game, and I had drawn a little character with a big nose hopping around on this thing, and it was a different kind of game with the pyramid. Warren took some of that, and a lot of it he threw out, and he pursued his own vision of it. And like I said, I mentioned David Thiel. He added the audio, taking just like random.
It was like
phenomes because he was having difficulty with the voice chip, making it sound like real speech on like another game that he had worked on. And but for this game, it was perfect to have this guy talking nonsense. So it was all these different pieces came together, and we had a good feeling about this game from the very start. We thought this could really be successful.
Who came up with the idea to change the squares different colors, and you had to get them all one color?
That actually was Ron Waxman, who I mentioned. He was our vice president, the head of engineering, and he would hang around the office till all hours. And a lot of these guys, Warren and other programmers, put in long hours in the evenings, and Ron would be there plodding around. He was a very large man, very obese, and he smoked a big cigar, and he would kind of lurk behind the programmers. They found it kind of unnerving, but that's just the way he was, and he nailed it. He said to Warren one night, "What if when he jumped on a cube, it changed color?" So that was really credit goes to Ron.
Yeah, and it was cool because you'd have to change it from one color to another. Then the next level will be another color to another, and then eventually you could, if you jumped on a square, it was almost like a Rubik's cube. You jumped on a square, turned it yellow, and you had to turn all of them yellow. If you jump back on that square, it turned it to like a different color.
Right. Later on, that's, in the higher racks, right?
In the higher racks of it, yeah. So that
toggle, yeah,
it became pretty challenging. But I had an ex-girlfriend that used to love. I mean, this was literally, this was a date. This was a date for us to take her out to go play Qbert. That was her game. I was a Mappy guy. Remember the game Mappy?
Yeah. There's
Mappy with a little mouse.
Right. You talk. Okay, I was thinking of Flicky for a moment. Another story, but yeah, some years ago, we used to live in a town nearby, and there was this couple. I remember the husband was a local cop, and the woman Sherry had a son like one of my daughter's age. So we kind of knew them, and then we moved away. And years later, we're back in Oak Park at a party, and this couple is there, and she says, "What? Mike tells me you did Qbert," and she had never known that. I had never brought it up or whatever. And she says, when Rob and I, her husband, the cop, were going out, that would be their date. They would, on maybe the Atari, I don't know which home system, they'd sit around and play Qbert. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's bizarro, isn't that? That you drew a picture of something and people are like you looking at it when they're just before they make out.
Yeah.
Or actually, better yet, after they finish.
Yeah, right. That's where you got the sound.
But you look at the technology that's grown here. I mean, you can't. How could you foresee what was going to? You said you saw that it was you all collaborating, it was going really well, and you knew something was happening. It was an exciting moment. But just like I guess a band that goes out and makes a lot of no money in their first tour, and then later on they come in and start to make money. Did you go through one of these things where you're just an employee, then all of a sudden, hey, he's the guy, now we need him back again? We want him to write another one or a second program or a third or another arcade version?
It didn't really kind of work out that way. Everything we created was owned by the company.
Right.
And our company was owned by Columbia Pictures. And Columbia Pictures was owned by Coca-Cola.
Wow.
So today, Qbert and all that stuff is owned by Sony Pictures because Sony bought Columbia some years back.
And Soros.
And Soros, yeah.
George Soros.
Maybe he's in there too.
So Jeff, do you get any kind of residuals for Qbert or no? You don't. That's it.
Nope. I was working for the man. So
well, that sucks a little bit, huh?
Well, yeah, it does. But it sucks on one hand. On the other hand, I can't complain. My life has been good. My life has been good.
Think about this stuff.
For me.
You're being hired to do a job, and you do the job and you hand it in. That's your job. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're being paid to do. Now, if that job, I mean, the guy at McDonald's, he's flipping that burger and making those fries, and he's getting $14 an hour. But the guy who owns the McDonald's makes, $1 million a year. He doesn't deserve. Does the guy who's flipping the burger, who didn't own the business and run it and destroy and structure this whole thing and take the risks and all of that?
Yeah, but the guy going out to a bar saying, "Hey, I made a hamburger for you. I made fries." This guy can go out and say, "You know something? I made Qbert."
Yeah, you're right. But wait a minute.
That only means something to a certain demographic of the population. Guys like you, God bless you, guys that are in their 40s and 50s, and it's what your show is about. Hey,
can we cut that out?
Liked as a kid, right?
Can we cut out the 40s, 50s? Can we cut that out? I don't want to be known as 40s, 50s. But wait a second. What about this, Jeff? What about when you had failures? Did you have any things you drew that they hated and chucked in the trash?
Besides the show, Jeff.
Well, yeah. I mean, as you mentioned in the intro, maybe that was from Wikipedia or something like that. There were a number of games that never got released. And
somebody paid you for those anyway while you're
we got
creating.
paid for that anyway. They were
See, Walt?
completely finished games.
The good and the bad.
They put them out on test. That's what they would do. They take a game, they'd have a couple prototypes put together, and would go to a bowling alley or wherever, and they would see how many quarters it would collect. And if it didn't collect enough money, they might try to tweak it. But that was the yardstick for everything, because
See, that's cool.
There was a hierarchy in the business of you had the operators in the arcades, right? The people that had the machines on the floor in their establishment. There were distributors above them who actually sold them the games, and the distributors bought it from the corporations that manufactured it. But you needed good collection reports to convince the distributors to even buy the game. So if you didn't get that, the game was not manufactured. There's many games like that.
So you made a game, and then you would put it out into a bowling alley or an arcade. And if you collected so many quarters, so is this when games get put into like an arcade, the arcade doesn't own the games. The company owns the games. The arcade just gets paid a portion.
No, generally the operators would buy the machines from the distributors.
Oh, really?
So the manufacturers would sell to distributors. The distributors would sell to operators at the arcade level.
And obviously, the more popular the game, the more expensive it is.
Right. And what happened?
That's brilliant, John. That is brilliant.
Well, it has to. But I'm just thinking, if you're a Donkey Kong and you're like Mrs. Pac-Man, it's not going to be as much as the one nobody wants, like the fire engine.
Right.
Isn't that kind of like how everything works,
John?
John?
It was, and I can't tell you offhand what those machines cost back in the early '80s, but say it was $1,500 to buy a machine. Well, how many quarters is that? You know, that's 6,000 quarters you got to collect to break even.
And that's not even if somebody breaks the machine, right? Somebody,
there's that. So if you got a machine taking up space on your floor and it's not collecting much money, that's a very
get it out
for you. So they wanted good collection reports, and that's why a lot of games never made it.
See, I didn't know that's how that happened. I thought every game that was ever made just went out and stayed as long as its usefulness.
Well, some of them did, but you only got so much room in your arcade. So
if that's true.
Comes along that's new, and later in the life of Gottlieb, they were doing what we called kits. So, okay, Dragon's Lair first Laserdisc game, right? We were also working on Laserdisc games, Mach 3. Which was a flying game, and they went out and they shot footage, from an airplane, and you were like flying a jet around or bombing stuff. And it was an expensive game, but it made a lot of money because laser games were quite a novelty. But as the industry started running into troubles, people didn't want to buy a whole new laser game. So we made a game called Us Versus Them, which was a kit. And all they would have to do is swap out the laser disc and put new artwork on the cabinet. And they could have, for a fraction of the cost, a new game. And hopefully that would suck in a bunch of quarters.
Wow, that's the American way.
That's where things were going. And, that was kind of a viable business model for a number of people. I know my boss, Howie Rubin, was doing a lot of conversion kits like that. In fact, he had a company called Kitco, and they would just swap out these games, they'd get them from Japan or wherever and slap new artwork and new chips or new board.
I feel bad because we used to put a hole in a quarter, tie fishing line on it, drop it into the machine, and pull it back out so it would register you the credit. And then you still have the quarter, and you just keep doing it. So I may have inadvertently taken one of your games and not made it happen.
That's right. It must have been you, Walt.
Sorry.
He's the reason why he's ruined his retirement
Yeah.
fund.
He's not getting residuals.
Yeah, things
Him
have
and
worked
Dawn
out
Wells.
good for me, so I
But-
can't moan.
What about the drawing of this actual character? What did you draw it with a pencil? Did you draw it with color art? Did you draw it on a computer tablet? Like
That's such a weird question.
I know, but I'm just thinking, like, what's the process then versus now?
Yeah, well, I would make a sketch. I'm going to drag something out of one of my files. My file
By the way,
cabinet here.
Walt, don't drag anything out of your files, please.
That's
So
amazing.
I would make a sketch.
I don't know.
and
Did you
then I
use
would
a pencil?
I would use like grid paper.
Well, think about it. I mean, when you sketch something, people use like a pad and they sketch something. But now you're going into a digital world. That's the beginning of digital world with 8-bit, and they had to squeeze everything in. And like, do you make one
Just show
piece
up.
and colorize it? Let me see what he's got here. Hang on. Let me blow you up.
Make it bigger.
There you go.
All right,
Wow.
there's some monsters on there.
Okay, it's a monster. This is on grid paper. It's maybe hard to see, but it's like blue lines,
No, it's very clear.
and it's a 16 by 16 pixel.
And they're all marked
monster
26,
with the
27,
different
28, 30.
animations and
Right.
the different rotations for the monster.
That's
This is
fascinating.
for a game. This is for a game that was entirely completed, and never released in its original form because it didn't collect enough money in the arcade. Several years later, they reworked the game,
He's got his Donkey Kong.
gave it a new name. Here, can we make this one out here?
Let's see what.
Is that Yar's Revenge?
They call it Whiz Wars.
Oh, I've had that before with Walt.
We drank a lot. We drank a lot, and then we had
Right.
Whiz Wars.
I don't remember
and,
Wiz
and, and
Wars.
they released a version of the game, but it was kind of towards the end of the life of the company. So
Was it like Wizards?
yeah, there was a wizard. Here's like my original sketch of him.
Dude, I had no wizard games. None.
That is cool. That is really, really cool. Wow. I love the character.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that as a puppet. That's awesome.
And there was one of the enemies, this tornado and
The
stuff.
tornado.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, there is one of these prototypes at the Galloping Ghost Arcade. That's the arcade you talked about.
That's the
They're
one
at
we gotta go to, Walt.
Actually about 700 games now. But
COVID free.
he's trying to do a expansion. Doc Mack is the proprietor of that arcade. He wants to bring it up to like 1,000 games.
Is that
and
the
one-
largest one in the US, Jeff, or no?
Yes.
See? See,
Maybe in the
Walt?
world. I don't know. But,
In the world.
What do they charge to get in? They charge like one price to get in. You play whatever you want.
Yes, right. Everything's on free play. You go in on a daily basis. I think it's $20 now, and it's all you can play for all day. You get your hand stamped. You can go out,
That's awesome.
get a
is
drink or
great.
get a meal. You can come back in and play. He also has a pinball division in another building down the street. I don't know how many pins he's got in there now. I mean, nowhere near 700, but he's working on it. Who knows what he'll have someday. So that is like one model with the free play. And there's a number of arcades here in that area, in this area. There's the Underground Retrocade up in East Dundee. In fact, Scott Lambert, the proprietor, may be tuned in tonight.
He's right here.
Is
He's
that
saying
him?
it's the
Yeah, he's
largest
telling
one.
us.
There he
well.
is. Yeah. Okay.
And it's
Tell
20
us,
bucks.
Scott Lampert.
Thank
Right.
you,
All right,
Scott
Scott,
Lambert.
we got you, bro.
Yeah.
But I'm
I got
telling
you.
you, I say we fly to Chicago. We get there early in the morning, get there at 10 o'clock. We hang out all day. Then we go out and have a couple of drinks and dinner with Jeff. And we fly home. The whole day, take you 10
Sounds
hours,
good.
flying out of Chicago, out of blast.
Sounds good.
Give us something to talk about the next week.
Right.
Yeah, almost 40 pins, $15 admission.
Scott's correcting me. He's in West Dundee, across the river from
Scott.
East Dundee. But yeah, he's got a bunch of games, 40 pins, $15 admission.
I'm ready.
There's,
I'm ready.
Pixel
I'm a
Blast
pinball guy.
out in Lyle, Illinois. There's a collector, Jeremy Fox, who is a Prince Arcades out in Bolingbrook. There's a bunch of arcades here. I just hope they get through
I'm
this.
going to that one.
I hope
We
they
don't
get
have it.
I
You
hope
don't
they
collect-
get through
you
this
don't collect-
crisis.
collects pinball machines. The lead singer for not the lead singer, singer, but the guitarist for Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Chris Caffrey. He is a big pinball collector.
That's actually where a lot of the pins that are manufactured today go directly to collectors. There's Mike Vinicor, who works for Stern, was telling me that is like their biggest market. And they make a pinball game that they manufacture will come out like in 3 versions, 3 different price points. The cheapest one is typically what will go to the arcades. And then they got a mid and high end, and those go to collectors. Guys like this guitarist you're talking about.
Yeah.
And they'll pay a lot for these pins that have all the bells and whistles on them.
Scott said Doc has 40 pinballs, and I got almost 200 games and 13 pins at the present. Chicago is the best place for arcade lovers in the world, carrying Scott. So
yes, yeah. I mean,
I'm going to do this. I'm going to definitely listen. We're in the middle of COVID. Now is the best time. I could actually take a day and go to Chicago and do this and have fun. So Jeff, if we come out there, we'll take you out to dinner. Would you come out to dinner with us?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
All right, we'll do it. We'll take them out to dinner. We'll go have some Chicago pizza. We'll play the games. It'll be a blast.
Yeah,
maybe we should get him to sponsor the show.
Get Scott Lambert to sponsor the show.
That's what I mean.
I don't know how to. I haven't been there yet. I don't know. All I know is I can just imagine pressing all those buttons and going like this, and then go, achoo. Oh no, I got COVID.
No. Right?
Yeah. I don't know how they're handling that.
It's got to be challenging.
Is it open?
It's a tough time for the arcades. But
is it open now? Is Scott's place open?
Scott, is it open?
Yeah, Scott's open.
He's open.
Oh, it is. See, over here in New York,
they're all open. Galloping Ghost is open. Pixel Blast is open.
I'm only going to
Prince Arcades is open. There's a place out in DeKalb, Star Worlds. They're actually with the old model of you pay with tokens or quarters.
The Scott
and they're open. They've been in business since the 80s. They've been around a long time. They've gone through a lot of ups and downs in the industry.
Does Scott have Qbert or no?
Yes, Scott has Qbert.
Just one?
Probably just one. I don't know that he's got.
Come on, Scott, man.
Well, look, here's my schedule for November. I have a lot of days right here. November 3rd, 4th, any of these days I could fly in and out of Chicago and do this. I'm ready.
Isn't that like election day?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, can't do November 3rd.
I already voted. Voted. So.
While we're there, we can participate in Game Lives Matter.
Right? Qbert Lives Matter.
Game Lives Matter.
So again, though, I'm not clear about this question, though, Jeff. So you mentioned that you started drawing. You showed this picture, and you show the way you have drawing number 30, 31, 32, 33. So you're not animating. You're actually making a movement of a character in still pictures along a graph paper.
Yeah, like classical animation. I would work on a light table and do a lot of flipping back and forth with the papers. I initially didn't have much of tools in terms of computer graphics as we know them today. What I had was like an Apple II, and one of our engineers, a guy named Jim Weiss, wrote a utility, a little program for the Apple II that allowed me to draw, the pixels in this thing. And then I could actually attach this to what was a ROM burner. So it was a device where the images would be burned onto a chip that would be placed onto the graphics board. And then it was only then I could actually see the graphics in motion.
Was this back in the day?
This was like in 1981. Right. So it was, by today's standards, so primitive, so many steps along the way to actually see the thing that was moving. Nothing like the tools that exist now, or even
do you use the tools
a few years later?
Do you use the tools that exist now?
These are tie-in.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on a project with a young guy who's obsessed with 1980s technology. So he's produced an amazing retro game that's called Pixel Blast. It's at the Pixel Blast arcade. There's only one of them. He used some utility, some game utility to produce. It's kind of a Pac-Man tribute, but it's named after this arcade in Lisle. And so, just for the heck of it, I did some cabinet graphics for this guy.
I don't blame you. You know, think about this though. I mean, I watched on YouTube. There are videos of people that collect arcade stuff and people that want to reprogram them and fix them and clean them and organize them and hadn't owned them all and all this stuff. And matter of fact, my daughter, when she was young, had a thing called, I don't know, it was like a 386 computer. It was called a Barbie computer. And it was all pink and it had a pink monitor and it had Barbie software loaded in it. And it was like really silly. I bought it for her. It was like really expensive back in the day. And, you know, we threw it out later on because it was so antiquated. And there was a guy on YouTube I watched the other day who paid $2,500 for a nice clean one that was working order. Yeah. And then the same guy went and spent another $2,000 on one that was a hot cars, the racing cars or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So the retro thing is big.
Yeah. There's quite a community of retro gamers out there, and they have, you know, different interests, of course, that what really fascinates them, but it's their hobby, and they're guys who collect antique autos, you know. They'll scrounge parts they would like original if they can get them, but, you know, they'll make do with whatever to get that thing up and running. Well, they're doing the same thing with these machines. The machines that Gottlieb and Midway and Williams and Atari produce were only meant to last for a couple of years, right? And here it is 40 years later, and
amazing.
These retro gamers they've saved thousands of these games, and they bring it back to life. You know, Jeremy Fox from the Prince arcades, he's kind of like famous in the community for going on these raids. Well, they'll go on a warehouse raid. Him and Doc Mack from Galloping Ghost jump in a truck. They'll drive hundreds of miles because they heard that there's like some arcade machines in an old barn somewhere down in Tennessee or something like that. And they'll salvage these games and bring them back to life. It's amazing.
You know, it's funny too. I'm thinking here, how long were we meant to work for and last? How many years were we made for?
Yeah,
85. Right, 85.
Right. Yeah, I think my sex life was made to go for like 4 years.
This just lays credence to what I've told you all along, John, is that shows like this, there's nothing out there like this. So when we talk about this is awesome. Wow, you know, we get guys like Jeff to come on and talk about how Qbert was drawn and made. It interests me. It interests you. It interests the dummies that are watching this right now.
Yeah, but you know something too. I didn't realize he wrote it on the graph paper, had the light table, and made each movement. Like I had no clue. Like as an artist, I'm not an artist.
I don't know.
I wouldn't have known that. Now I'm wondering, the technology has changed so much today. I assume everyone does everything.
They do right on a computer. They probably do right on a computer.
Yeah,
right?
You can add colors and add graphics, and you could just pull things, and you know it's so.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mentioned this game I'm working on with this young fella, and so we're gonna do. We've been working on a game that's kind of a tribute to Qbert in a way. It's going to be a puzzle game, but I'm actually drawing the characters in a 3D program and using that to animate the moves. But we want it to look like a hand-drawn cartoon, so I'm rendering each image, of like to make an 8-step walking progression, for instance, and then I'm tracing that over and actually drawing it by hand and then rescanning it and coloring it. So it's a long involved process, but it'll have a real cartoon look to it. It won't look
old school.
It won't be a 3D look, and it won't be really a real retro look because it won't be full of jagged pixels, but
it won't be a retro.
Right. But hopefully it'll be fun. We'll see. Still a lot of work to be done on it.
Well, that was fun.
No, it is fun. And, so I'm thinking, too, that he has who could? Could you imagine the future that we're in now? Like today, I'm sitting here, I'm watching the news on my iPhone. I'm just sitting here watching the news and Wi-Fi in real time in HD and 4K. And it's like, I mean, I was just thinking tonight, I couldn't imagine the things that, I mean, I could imagine, but the reality of it is become so commonplace now.
Where's the flying cars? Where's the flying cars? We're supposed to have those by now.
Smoke some pot. You'll be flying in all the cars.
Now, what we want to do, you want to throw up a couple games and see if Jeffrey knows them?
Oh, I'm sure he does, but sure.
Well, you'd be surprised. There are a lot of games out there, but yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Throw up a couple, then we'll ask them the 5 questions. Ninja Turtles, horrible.
I've seen that game. I've never played it.
I've played it.
I'm not very fond of the girl next to it either.
Actually, I'd rather play the game.
My son loved Teenage Turtles when he was a kid.
All
Mine
the
too.
kids did. All the kids liked it. I mean, it was just a fighter with a sword game. I played it a couple of times. It was okay. Let's see. Let's see a good game for something. I don't know. First of all, what platforms was your Qbert on? First, it came out as an arcade,
right?
And then it went to.
Well, it was Atari, Nintendo, I guess. You know,
Was there somebody else?
I had like practically no involvement with that stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
I was gonna say, you
I
probably
did do
didn't
the
that.
artwork on a Super Nintendo version of Qbert back in the 1990s, I think.
Did you do backgrounds too?
For the games I worked on, yes, I did the backgrounds typically. All it. I was like the only artist.
I see.
It was one artist initially, and there was like half a dozen programmers. The amount of graphics that could be displayed was so small, we only needed one artist to do it all.
Right.
And now it's different. You'll have, I mean, these incredible games that get produced today. You have a team of programmers, and you'll have probably 10 times the number of artists doing all the 3D graphics.
I watched something on YouTube yesterday, and they were talking about how the artists that were used in the 80s and 70s, when they would make the background art for a video game, they would make it in this very strange way that it because it didn't have to have a backdrop that was a focal point. So it was like a very surreal backdrop of something, because it wasn't being used as the backdrop as much as it was being used to lay on top of it other things and characters and other stuff that is the focal point. So the backdrops were almost like the people that drawing these backdrops were being negated as having any quality of work, because they were making something that's just basically obtuse to the.
It was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was a little different for the system I was working on, because we had very stringent limitation on the number of graphics that can be stored in memory. So I would have like 128 background characters, and these were 8x8 blocks of pixels, and that would have to be every possible background that would be in the game. So I would try to design pieces that could be used over and over again in different combinations. And you could change the colors at some point, because that was
See, who you
one way
wouldn't
to get around stuff.
So I'm lost.
But who would think of that? You see what I'm saying? Like, he's telling you a piece of history that you wouldn't understand unless you drawing in that environment.
Right. So, for instance, a game you'll never see. Well, if you go to Galloping Ghost, you'll see it. This game it had number names, Protector. It was a superhero game. And there was all these different scenes. There was a city scene. There was a country scene. There was a bridge. There was a scene on the moon. And I had 128 little characters to build the backgrounds for all those scenes. So they got used over and over, some of them, changing the colors. And sometimes maybe something looked a little hinky because I only had 128 little squares to do this with. So there's that. And by the same token, we had 256 foreground characters. So you see Qbert jumping around. He's a 16 by 16 little grid. And his animation, he's going 4 different ways, and, you know, jumping, squashing and whatever, and all the enemies. So I had to do all the enemies, Qbert, The word balloon where he's swearing, the little disc that move around, all that stuff was done as foreground characters. And like I say, definite limitation, 256. That's all there was.
Amazing.
For our system. Now, it didn't take long for other games to, surpass that as memory got cheaper and different designs came along. And you see what you got today. Anything's possible.
Hey, guess what? There's a fly on my head.
You're lucky to have a brother that's watching out for you.
He's good. All right. So what we usually do, Jeff, we ask these 5 questions. That's a great game, by the way. Crazy Climber.
Yeah, I never played it. I do remember that though.
How about
that was a great game. What was that? Atari and television
TV with the Atari
Sears.
Pong.
Oh my God, it's a Sears.
Yeah, from Sears, 154.95.
Wow.
That's a lot of money in 1976.
I
Look at the enjoyment.
Not heard about this system, the Sears.
Yeah,
I gotta wonder who made that for him.
I don't know, but I'm sure it's on
Warren Davis, I think it was.
So go ahead, ask them the question. Let's.
All right, so this is what we do. We ask all a question. What was your favorite toy growing up?
Oh God, my favorite toy. That's
time's up.
I didn't think too much.
Oh man, I like those little sets. So we had like a Zorro play set.
All right,
and there was like a little like a mission and walls, and then there was Zorro.
All the millennials are going, "Who's Zorro?"
A little too much information there, Jeff. How about favorite candy?
Favorite candy was probably Sweet Tarts. Great.
All right, flavor. Sweet Tarts. That's good. Yeah. How about your favorite TV show growing up, man?
Oh man, I don't know. Let's go with the politically incorrect F Troop.
I like it.
Love that Troop.
It's a great show.
We have to do a whole episode before that guy passes away too, because I'm friends with him. He's a friar.
Who's that? Larry Storch?
Yeah, he's still alive. He's very elderly. Lives in New York City. Yeah.
Favorite movie?
Yeah. Favorite movie when I was a kid? Oh man, I like Tarzan movies when I was a kid.
Tarzan. Okay.
Running in the jungle.
Favorite band growing up?
The Stones.
Stone. All right. So he's not all that bad.
No. Stones are great.
Stones. I'm waiting for somebody to say Kiss.
Nobody said that Kiss yet. Stones are classic. How could you not like Stones? Bowie.
Great.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I remember like 1964 hearing them on the radio as we were driving through Gary, Indiana, and the Rolling Stones.
I was born that year. I was born that year.
Yeah, you were born that year. Well, I was 12 years old. So
he was in the back seat of the car. His mom was in the back seat of the car with his dad. And he was on the phone playing with this. They were doing fishies. Look at all this old stuff here. Remember those? Yeah. Light bright. All right, was there one more question for him? One more, Walt, wasn't it?
No, that was it. That's all I had.
Okay.
Well, Jeff,
that's all I had. Favorite video game?
My favorite video game back in the day was probably Asteroids.
Yeah. Wow. See, Asteroids was a great game.
Great game. Simple.
You
couldn't get much more simple. I mean, the graphics are incredible. It was
that was a big game, man.
A vector game. We didn't use vector technology at Gottlieb. We were using rasters, pixels. But yeah, just an amazing game.
In fact, that was a great game, and that was a lot of quarters. Along with Space Invaders. Yeah, a lot of quarters went into Asteroids, man. You got to
line up quarters. I typically played it in bars. We were drinking and trying to hook up with women. And
you know what the best part of that was? You take the quarters. Like if somebody was playing, you'd line your quarter up, everybody who was next, along the glass.
Yeah,
along the top of the glass.
Right.
And you had to remember which quarter you were.
Yeah, I remember that. You're right.
Lining them up on the glass.
Things were so much different. And now, by the way, Jeff, we do know that you do still draw caricature type work, I believe, and you also create some artwork that you sell. I saw on your website. There's really some cool stuff, especially some retro stuff.
What is this website?
Oh, it's JeffreyPLee.com.
ep21.com. And we got my memoir.
The memoir.
Oh, there you go. Now that what is inside the memoir?
This is the story of Gottlieb video game division. So it's an exhaustive history of every game we produced.
That's really cool.
Contributions from my co-workers, Warren, Howie Rubin, Ron
I think I saw that
and many others. So I got some copies left of this. Warren also had, let me plug Warren's book. He published it last year. I think they're having a sale right now.
You can't call it blah 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 blah.
Yeah, right. So
That looks pretty
this is
interesting.
Warren
too.
Davis's memoir. It's pretty much his career. He worked at Williams at one point. We worked on some independent projects, but he covers a lot of ground there.
That's cool.
Far beyond the Gottlieb. Mine is pretty much confined to the Gottlieb stuff. Warren just tracks his career all the way through. He was working for Disney out in California, and he's still out in California these days.
That is so cool. So folks, if you want to get in touch with Jeff, and please just go to his website and take a look at some of the cool stuff.
There.
It's right there on the website, jeffreyplee.com. And it's interesting. He has some, I noticed, I looked at the website and there was some cool things. Bob Brummer had his comic. He had drawn Bob Brummer's comic book, and he had some other things that he was selling. It looked like artwork or something.
A lot of little paintings.
Yeah, really cool.
And
Jeff,
typically I'd make the frames on them. So I was doing that for a while. I had them in some local galleries. I've sold some, but I've got a lot I didn't sell yet. So
they're up there.
We'll buy them.
They're up there. They're still available. Yeah. And in fact, the painting in the back is for sale. So
I'm looking at some of the stuff that's on it. It's really cool. I'll just give you guys a quick screen share of this. This is a picture of one of the things that is for sale on his website, and it's interesting. If you could see this, I think you can. There you go.
Yeah, what is it?
Come a blowsy day.
John, that's right up your alley.
It's up your alley.
So
and there's another one, Jelly Van D'Angelo. That's really that artwork is very what do you call it when it's eclectic? Like I'm just looking.
I will bet my left nut that John buys that blowsy one.
A lot of those are based on little doodles I did in my sketchbook, and then
this is great. Mrs. Monoculiosis. I love it.
Monoculus.
I love that. That is great. And
buy it.
I might. I love good art. I'm looking at I have to really take a deeper look at these. He's got some really cool looking stuff on here. He's got he's got the Illuminati stuff. just to show you he's part of the club.
I think that's an angry bird in there.
Oh, it's very cool. So besides the artwork, and then we have information about his book on there.
Was that Schlong?
Schlong.
John, you're gonna buy Schlong. I know you are.
Look at this, meeting Mr. Look at all these cool things. There's a lot of cool stuff on it, plus the book. So, folks, go to jeffreyplee.com if you're interested, and take a look at some of the stuff he has for sale there. The books are really great. The artwork is great, and he's been around, and he's really great. We appreciate you coming on.
You're very kind.
Thanks for having some fun with us tonight,
guys.
Yeah, and you have a great sense of humor.
Walt,
and I think
been great talking to you.
Whether Walt goes or not, and whether it's tomorrow, November, or January, I'm coming to Chicago one day and going to that arcade. And I'm going to come out. We'll have a couple of beers and burger and hang out for a night. It'll be fun.
Yeah, good. We'll go to Brixie's down the street for a beer or a shot.
What's Brixie's? What is that?
It's a dive tavern down the street from the.
Isn't it? What about where's the great Chicago pizza?
People talk about deep dish pizza, but for me, the true Chicago pizza is tavern style.
Yeah, like me.
It's like a thin crust. It's a thin crust pizza. So
love it.
Works
there's a lot of great places around here to get that kind of pizza. Absolutely.
Once again, Jeffrey P. Lee.
Thanks for joining us, having some fun, bro.
Yeah, thanks for having me out. And thanks,
No
Bob
problem.
Rumba, for putting us
Thanks,
in touch.
Rumba.
Thank you, Bob Rumba. This is Cool Crap We Loved. And if you want us, if you like it, it's what you see, go on youtube.com/Cool Crap We Loved. And what do you have to do, Walt?
You have to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, man.
That's right. I want to thank our guests, and please forward any comments over here. Having a good time? Tell us in the comments. If you want to catch me, you can find me at johnpeasy.com or jpzent.com. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Ciao for now.